Teacher Will is here for you to answer your questions. So he didn't hesitate when I asked him to join my live. So he was like very happy to join this live. And thank you so much, the guys that are joining. Yes, Joey, Louise, hello. So let's get right away to our us. So there's a question box. You can put any question that you would like. Hello.
Hello, teacher. How are you? Good afternoon.
Sir, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. And before we get started, let me just thank you for inviting me to your page.
Sure.
I really appreciate it. I haven't done a lot of lives recently, and so very rarely, if I do lives, I'm the one that's initiating it, but very rarely do I get invited by other teachers to do a live. So I appreciate that. I heard that you were speaking before. I don't necessarily know. I don't necessarily know if the conversation is going to be epic, but
there is a problem,
I do want to thank you.
Well, there's a problem with your with the video, with your picture, and the sound is like breaking up.
Okay, let me come back. I'll be right back. I'll come back.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
So just tell me, guys, do you hear me well? Do you hear me? Can you hear me? Type me in the comments if you can hear me. There is no problem. I hope there is no problem in the voice. You can hear me pretty well. How do you do? I'm good. Thank you so much. So good. Let me know, guys, if you can hear my voice pretty well. Yes. Okay. It's perfect. That's great. That's great. Share this live, please. Share this live so that everybody can join. Teacher Will, he's joining us again. We're just going to fix some problems related to his internet connection, and he will be back. Okay. Let's go again. Let's see. I can hear. That's great. So clear. That's what we want, actually. Hello again.
1, 2, 3. Can you hear me better or no?
Oh, I can hear you, but the picture is like not clear.
I don't know.
You can hear me. It's okay. It's okay.
It's good.
All right. So yeah, I took my headsets off. So let me know, learners, ATW family. Let me know if you can hear me. So, you know, hey, Lavinia. Okay, they said we can hear you.
Can you hear Teacher Will?
All right, it's clear. Thanks, Rodrigo.
I think
so,
it's
teacher,
good
thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. Let me try it this way,
of course.
Thank you very much for inviting me, teacher. I appreciate it.
Teachers such as yourself.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, Teacher Will, I would like to start with, of course, most of the people here, I guess, they're my followers, and most of them, some of them, they know you actually. They know you from Instagram, and they've seen you before in some videos. But I think that the majority, they don't really know you. So would you like to introduce yourself in like some brief words?
Sure, very quickly. Hey, everybody. Hello, Quick English followers, and hey, ATW family. My name is Teacher Will. I am from America, born there, native language is English. That's important to some of you, or it's more important to you than it is me, because English is a global international language. Been teaching since 2011, Goodwill Ambassador, TESOL certified. I currently live in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, where I'm teaching English face-to-face and also online. Happy to be here, and I have 2 themes. We learn together, and how do we learn? Motivation, inspiration through English. So again, I'm excited to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
That's great. That's great. That's awesome, actually. Well, one of the first things I noticed about you, Teacher Will, is that you're full of energy, and you have this young power inside you. So you can feel it. Everyone can feel that. So how did you get that this energy?
Well, thank you for that. You know, very simply, I think the thing is 2020 has been a very challenging, interesting year, particularly with the pandemic. But
Yes.
in terms of getting energy, every day that I wake up, I'm blessed.
Yes.
Any day I wake up, anytime anybody is 6 feet above the ground, you're blessed. You have an opportunity to accomplish your goals. You have an opportunity to learn English. You have an opportunity to, you know, see family and do what you want. So I think for me, having that energy is just recognizing and realizing that I'm alive and I could have been dead. So I keep things in
Yeah.
perspective. And hopefully, you know, when I do videos, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube, that people, you know, see that energy or whatever. But contrary to popular beliefs, what's interesting is that when I'm off social media, I'm rather quiet. But a lot of people don't believe that, but I am.
Yeah. So that's great. That's great. Actually, that's great. So, teacher Will, I would like to start with a question that I always ask my guests here. This question is repeated every time. So, how can I start learning the English language as a beginner? I am new to this language. I have never started like anything. I want to start. How can I start? What is the right way to make me start like and go in the right path?
Great. So my comments are for someone that's particularly at the beginner, but it also can be applicable to any other level than a beginner. There's an acronym and abbreviation that I have. It's calling the GPPP. Particularly for beginners, you have to know your goal. What is your goal? What is the reason why you want to learn English? Then after
Yes.
you have your goal, you have a plan. Plan means roadmap. Plan means steps that you want to take. And there's different ways that you can do that. The other P stands for prayer. I believe in a God or a higher power, universe, whatever people want to call it. If they believe in that, that's great. If they don't believe in prayer, then call it belief in themselves. And then the final P is produce. Produce means action. Produce means that you have to do something. And so for beginners, what I think is important is that if they follow the GPPP, the goal, the plan, the pray, and the produce, but particularly when they're beginners, is to recognize and realizing two important things. Number one, it's okay to make a mistake because making mistakes is part of the learning process. I'll give you three. So that's number one. Number one, it's okay to make mistakes. It's part of the learning process. Number two, make English fun. Make it fun.
Interesting.
Don't make it a chore, but make it a fun. And the last thing is that you want to be immersed in English, basically meaning make English part of your daily life, like you're brushing your teeth, like you're eating, like you're praying, like you're going to sleep. So if you have fun, don't worry about making mistakes, and make it part of your process. I think those are ways that, particularly for beginners, that you can learn. Last point I would say is this, because teacher, you said something which I think is very interesting. When you said the right way, what I'd encourage your learners to do, whatever level they're at, but particularly beginners, is go to my YouTube channel. It's the same as my YouTube channel is _teacher Will. Personally, I don't believe in a right way. So I would encourage your learn. What I believe in is you find the way that works best for you, because we're all individual learners. Some people like to do self-study. Some people like to do tutoring. Some people like to go online and, you know, to university. So it's finding the best way that works for you, because there, in my opinion, there is no right way. There's a quote unquote right way that works for you.
Yes, sure. Because we don't learn the same way. Like,
Exactly.
I mean, some people, they will learn in a certain way, but this method or the way they followed, it may not work for others. So
exactly.
that's clear. I actually like this, those P's that you have presented, goal, plan. Can this goal be just to learn English, like, how would I say, just to add one more language to your linguistic background? Can this be a goal?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I came up with that with a combination for two reasons, the G triple P. One, because of the ATW family. So anybody from ATW family, thanks for your support. I see a couple family members there, but I learned that because when I started teaching like face to face and on social media as well, and I also know to speak a foreign language, to me, it makes sense. But more importantly, or in addition to that, I use it in my own life. If people say to me like, "Oh, Teacher Will, like, how are you able to do certain things?" I just say the G triple P, because there's never anything that in my life that I've tried to accomplish that I find to be successful that the G triple P has not, at least in my own personal life. If I wanted to get my TESOL certification, which I did, that was a goal. Then I planned, then I prayed, then I produced. If I wanted to, like, I'm American, I moved this, I came and lived in Saudi because of the money, and I wanted to experience a completely different culture. I had a goal, I planned, I prayed, and I produced. So I think it can certainly help people in English and definitely in their own lives.
Yeah, sure. That's something that is applicable in all the fields. I mean, everywhere you go, you can apply this. So goal, and you need a plan, of course. If you don't have a plan, then your vision is unclear. So, and of course, you need to pray and produce. And I think that produce, what you mean by produce is in the learning process, I think it means to practice speaking and to practice writing or something like that, right?
Let me be specific. Produce means you have to do something. Produce means you have to have action. So what do I mean by producing English? Practice, practice, practice. What do I mean by producing? Find a speaking partner. And please, in 2020, is it 2020? Yeah, it's 2020. In 2020, please do not tell me that you have no one to speak with. I'm sorry. I know I'm your guest teacher. That's a lie. In 2020, do not tell me that you don't have anybody to speak with. You can speak to yourself. You can speak to yourself. You can speak with friends. You can create a WhatsApp group, a Telegram group. You can go and find applications where you actually have to pay to speak. You can pay to speak with online tutors face to face. So please do not tell me in 2020 that you cannot find somebody to speak with. Baloney, baloney, baloney. And then the last produce is it's got be willing to experiment. So again, think of whatever your native language is. If it's Arabic, if it's French, when you are learning the language, when you learned your native language, you learn first how to listen, then speak, then read, then write. English is no different. So when you're practicing, be willing to practice all four language skills, because most of the time, at least with my students, they just want to speak, and that's important.
Yes.
I would say, based on my own experience, is that someone who speaks French is that if I really want to become a good speaker, I learn how to read and I learn how to write. So you have to practice all four language skills.
Yeah, sure. And of course, for speaking partners, guys, I all the time say this. Well, speaking partners are everywhere. Here in this live, you can find people who are interested in speaking and practicing their language. And you can do that. You can find partners here. You can find partners on Facebook, on Instagram, everywhere. If you can't find someone near you, then you can find someone online. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
I think people, very quickly, teacher, very quickly,
yes.
I think people use that, I think particularly because of beginners, people don't necessarily know where to start, so it can be a little hard and scary. But again, there are free, I just need to say this and then we can move on to other questions. Learners, family members, ATW family, let me remind you, quick English teachers, let me say this. If you want to speak, if you want to learn English, it is your decision, your choice to make English a priority. Now, if you have free resources out there, as teacher mentioned, you can do that. If you don't, then you have to find a teacher online, face-to-face, or language skill that you have to pay for, because teaching is a service. Because a lot of times what you guys do is that you have a lot, if it applies, teacher, I'm a little direct, I'm American, sorry. I'm not apologizing, I'm direct. Learners, it's your choice and decision. You have free resources out there to speak and you don't use it. So you have free resources and you don't use it, which is an advantage to you. And then you have additional resources that you can do by pay. So make a decision. Which one is it?
Yes.
I'm done too.
Sure. Yeah, so that's great. That's great. So you need to make a decision. You need to find partners and to start producing. Without producing, like what you have learned is will go in vain. So, Teacher Will, there are many things on YouTube. You know, people, they use YouTube nowadays. Everyone is using YouTube now to have access to materials, for example, like listening, or to have some courses or some lessons online. So YouTube is a great resource, right? But the problem is that we have multiple choices and we have many channels, many videos, and it's like an ocean. So what can we pick from YouTube? What are the useful things that we can get from YouTube?
I think YouTube is like any other social media. It is a resource that is available to you to learn the language. One of the things that if we're relating to YouTube, one of the things is that I would say the following, is that when people are learning English, they need to do the following, or they should consider the following things. Number one, is that teacher supportive of who they are and what their goals are? And what I mean by that, so that's number one. Number two is looking at their content, and this might sound controversial, but it's me. Looking at their material and see if what their focus is on, because again, the reason is personal for various people. Is your focus or your desire to learn how to speak? Is it grammar, vocabulary, phrasal verbs? So look at the content material that YouTubers are doing. Number three, which I think is most important, following teachers or content providers that I believe, regardless if they are native or non-native, that are going to uplift and affirm people. Now, I might say something that might be a little controversial, and that's just me. It's my experience, my truth, my truth. What a lot of people do is that they think of English as one sound, one region, and one color. English is a global international language. Most of us that are on the call, you will never be a native English speaker. You will never be a native English speaker, and you know what? That's okay. Because you were not born in a native speaking country like I was. So when looking for content material, you might want to listen to the people that you choose to follow, because again, it's a choice. But look at people that are what, in my humble opinion, focusing on confidence, focusing on motivation, focusing on pronunciation and fluency as a primary target and not accent. Now, that might be strange for a lot of people because, again, a lot of people desire to sound like a native, look like a native, have native accent. For someone who was born in the United States of America who happens to be a native English speaker, that is not my priority. My priority is to have learners be fluent in the language, because English is a global international language. English does not discriminate. It is content providers and people that discriminate. And one last point about that as it relates to YouTube, because again, it's your choice. It's any individual's choice. But I want to ask people this question, believers, followers, to think of. In your native language, right, you have different dialects, different accents, but most of you, all you want to do is you want to learn, you want to learn with someone that comes from a particular region, comes from a particular country, looks like, maybe not like you look, but have that. What does native accent mean? Focus on your fluency and your pronunciation first. Accent is the distinctive way in which you speak. There is nothing in the English language that says that you need to. Need means essential. So those are the things that I would say as it relates to YouTube, along with any other social media content. Because I am the type of person is that, you know what, I recognize, you know what, fine. people might like the way that I sound, but it's not a question. They'll say to me, "Oh, Teacher Will, I want your accent." Baloney. You don't need my accent. What you need to do, what you have an opportunity to do, is focus on your clarity, your pronunciation, and sound like yourself. You don't need to sound like anybody else. You need to sound yourself and be proud of who you are. So those are things that I would say as it relates to YouTubers. And what I encourage your learners to do, go to my YouTube. I'm not saying follow me. I mean, follow me if you want. That's your choice. Yeah, but I encourage your learners to go and look at my last video that I posted, how to speak like a native teacher, or how to sound and speak like a native speaker.
Yeah,
they might be surprised what they hear.
I totally agree with you, because normally the English language is not about the accent. It's not all about the accent. Sometimes people, they just want to sound like some people. They want to sound like a certain person in the United States or a person in Britain, but they forget that the main goal is to be understood, is that people can understand you, is that when you speak to a person, be it a native or non-native, that person is going to be able to understand you. Your message is going to be conveyed. That is what is important.
Truly, teacher, but I agree 100%. I think what's important is to ask the reason why. And it goes to your point, whether it's on YouTube or other social media. Here's why. When you sent me a message and did a live, let me say this. Just a couple quick points. Number one, this desire for accent, it's not a question of blaming learners or anybody on YouTube or anybody on Instagram. Why? Because possibly what happened is that they are told from a very young age, they are told consciously or subconsciously, perhaps even programmed to sound like a native. Well, wait a minute. What does that, I'm sorry, you will never be a native. So people grow up thinking that, okay, you know what? I need to have native accent because that's all that I see. That's all that I hear. So it's subliminal. And then what learners will do is that consciously or subconsciously, they think that there's something the matter with them. Because you know what? Oh my God, I keep watching videos that teachers look from a particular region, particular color. I don't, and then also within particular countries, which is a reality, okay? Which is a reality. Jawal, you say near native. If you want to be near native, that's fine. There's nothing the matter with near native. But again, that's pronunciation and fluency. So let me be clear about this accent. Great point, Jawad. If you desire to have a native-like accent, that is aspirational. Figure out what accent, when you're talking about you want native speaking accent, which accent you want. Because in America, there are over 20 different regional accents. So accent is aspirational. And in certain circumstances and situations, depending on where you live, depending on the country that you live, you might have to sound more native-like because there is a bias and discrimination and bigotry that if you don't sound like a native, then you might not get a job or whatever. I'm saying let me say it like this, Jawad and others. Here is my focus. When I have students, I tell students is that when they say, "Oh, Teacher Will, I want your accent. I want to sound like you." What I tell them is I will focus on your pronunciation, your clarity, your enunciation. And then with respect to accent, I will say, and go to my YouTube channel, I will say, accent, your choice, you decide. Meaning, there are certain circumstances and situations based on the fact of where you live and who you are, you might have to sound like something or do a different accent in order to survive. That's how I explain it. But my focus is on fluency and pronunciation. Last point, teacher, because native speakerism, there's a concept in the industry that we have called native speakerism, the concept and the belief that English is only supposed to sound like a native. Well, in my humble opinion, native speakerism is nothing more than a systematic form of oppression based on non-native individuals. I don't care if somebody is native. I don't care if somebody is non-native. What I care about is somebody has the desire to learn the language. We teach them the basics, the fluency, the pronunciation, and then we expose them to the aspect is like, you know what? Instead of fixing your accent, fix your pronunciation.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
near native like, I'm fine with, but that's aspirational.
That's actually sometimes it's this point of all the time wanting native speakers, especially for in the teaching domain. Here in Morocco, in one of the schools, they have to choose a teacher for their school to teach English for young learners. I mean, for primary. And there were many candidates, and I mean, mostly all of them are good. All of them are good, but the school tends to take that teacher who have like some blue eyes and a native look or an American look or a Western look, so that the parents, they prefer their kids to, as they say, of course, they prefer that their kids study or to be taught with a native speaker, which is, I guess, it's sad actually here. And even in China and some other countries, they tend to choose a certain profile of teachers.
Well, what do you think that profile is, teacher? What do you think that profile is? Let's talk about that. What do you think that profile is, and why do you think that exists? And then more importantly, what do the learners think or say about that? So when you said it's interesting, like, what do you think that profile is or looks like? Or you can even ask the learners when they're saying, like, let's ask the learners, when they think of someone that's a good teacher, where are they from? What do they look like? Because I think that's an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
If the teachers are if the students are willing to have it. Or maybe
sure.
it'll be too quiet.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, we've spent too much time on this point. I move now.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Next one.
Some questions that I get from followers here.
Sure.
I have the first question here. How can you keep yourself motivated? Sometimes you just start learning the language and the students, they come to you and they say, well, we don't have that motivation. We failed. We stopped. Why the lack of motivation? How can we keep ourselves motivated when learning English?
I think that's a really good question. So I would say it's kind of my second theme. Motivation, inspiration starts within. There are times where people, while learning the language, they lack motivation. I would say, for more specific information, I did lots of videos on my YouTube channel, so people can go there. Number one, what I would say is that when people are lacking motivation, it's to tie it back into their why. Number one, take a step back and realize the reason or purpose why you're doing it. Number two, surround yourself around people or things that are going to keep you motivated. And number three, as a great form of motivation, particularly at the higher levels, teach someone English. I think that will motivate somebody else or keep you motivated. When you're able to teach someone else English at a lower level than you, it is a form of motivation. So it's like when I'm speaking French and I'm lowly on my French, it's kind of like, okay, I need to call my friends in Lebanon, I need to call my friends in Paris, I need to call my friends back home because I'm lacking. So those three suggestions, and recognizing and realizing that, hey, you know what, particularly beginners, there are times where you're going to lack motivation, but when that happens, take a step back and try to hopefully connect to your why again.
Yeah. So that's good. Actually, this is the same. Actually, it is related. Someone is asking how to avoid the boredom. We get bored. You talked first, when you talked about your P's and those, you talked about make fun, make learning fun. This actually drives us to this question. How can we make learning English fun? How to avoid
play English games, make fun of yourself, joke. You know, I laugh at myself constantly. Make fun, games, jokes. Do whatever, hey, Omar, whatever you enjoy doing, do it with English, because it has to be like part of you. You know, when somebody gets to the point, I hope learners get to the point where they don't find it, that they move to the point where they view English as not a chore, but a hobby and part of their lives. So if people like cooking, do English. If you like reading, do English. If you like the gym, do English. but you make it fun, and at least in my perspective, I laugh at myself and I joke a lot, because if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at?
Yeah, that's interesting. So another question. What is the good thing about learning English? Is English that important nowadays in 2020? Everyone wants to learn English. Now, even like some powerful countries, the need to learn the English language is growing every day. I see now in China, and Asian countries and most countries in the world, they are asking for more teachers now, for more English teachers. Why this? Is the English language a special language? Do you believe that, or is it like other languages?
Research and statistics shows that English is one of the global international languages. No one can dispute that English is not used as it relates to different industries relating to aviation, commerce, entertainment, internet. No one can deny that. So the research indicates that that English is important. What I would say is that learners have to ask themselves the question: is English important for them to learn?
Yeah.
End of report. Because the research shows that English is one of the global international languages, so there is a need to do it. What learners need to ask the question is that, okay, if there is English important for me to learn, yes or no? But research shows and statistics show that, hey, it's one of the global international languages of the world. 75% of internet sites are utilized and written in English. 60% of social media sites are written in English. So it's not that it's not important. People have to make the question and make a decision that, okay, is it important for them? Hey, Omar, how are you? Hold on one second. Hello, ATW family. Thank you very much for joining to the family and the teachers. I see some teachers on there. Charlie, Rodrigo, Leon, Omar, hello. Sorry, thank you.
Welcome, everybody.
So, yeah.
Welcome, everybody who joined live. This is good. So one of the problems actually about learning English, all what you have talked about actually is right about this, but sometimes we prevent ourselves from learning the English language. It's like if someone is learning the English language and he can't speak as he has in mind, like native, or if he can't have a good accent, as they call it, he gets disappointed, and that's prevent him from speaking. He gets shy. You say, well, if I speak, I don't sound like native, so my pronunciation or my accent, say my accent is not that good. So give us something practical. I mean, teacher, well, something practical.
Okay, great. Teacher, how direct do you want me to be? I can be very professional, or I can be very direct. Which one do you prefer? Because I'm on your live.
You be direct, of course. I would like you to be
Number
direct.
one, learners, number one, go to my YouTube channel and watch the video that I said, stop, number one, stop comparing yourself to other people. Stop comparing yourself to other people. Hello, teacher Halima. Because when you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure. Number two, please understand that there is a difference between pronunciation, how you pronounce and say words, and accent, which is the distinctive way in which you speak. So, what you need to focus, what I tell learners all the time is that they get that confused. When you stop comparing yourself to other people and stop trying to be a native, because that is something that you will never be, then that will possibly lift the burden off. Number three, be willing to put in the time. With all due respect, I am so sick and tired. Let me say this. I'm a native English speaker. I'm from the United States of America. Just because I'm a native English speaker does not mean that I know how to teach. Teaching is a job. It is a profession. It is an art. I went to school of it. Some of you are so worried. Stop trying to be something you are not. You will not be a native English speaker. Who cares? Focus what's important to you and be proud of who you are. It is absolutely ridiculous that in 2020 we are having this conversation still. Do I do native? Do I do non-native? Do I find a native teacher, a non-native teacher? I have nothing the matter with preference. Preference is what you like. But learners, wake up. wake up and realize that native speakerism is nothing more than a systematic form of oppression to make you feel less than. Be proud of who you are, and to get over your fear, which is real, because I've experienced fear in my life, or to get over your shyness. It's the belief that, you know what, when you put one foot in front of the other and you actually do something, it no longer becomes fearful. But a lot of you are walking around here having fear and being shy because you're trying to sound like a native. But I get it, because most of the videos that you only watch, you only watch videos that are from a particular region with a particular type of person that looks a particular type of way that you try to aspire to. And then what some of you do is you spend thousands and thousands of dollars or watch their videos, and they're basically telling you, change your accent. How does that make you feel, learners? And again, it's coming from me, a native. Y'all might like the way that I sound, but you might not like the way I look. And that's real. So what do? Take a look in the mirror and expand your horizons of what the English language might be. Stop comparing yourself. There's one of you. Be proud of who you are and focus on the things that are important. Do you realize, learners, that you are learning a language that is not your own, and you will make mistakes, but you're learning? But y'all want to, I'm sorry, this is very direct, but most of you, you only think of English with blonde hair, blue eyes. Let me say it like this way. Most of you, when you think of English, you're thinking about a white male or white female that has a particular American accent, British accent, and I need to speak native. And I have nothing against my white brothers and sisters because I have white in my blood. But y'all need to wake up. You're not going to be white. Nothing against white people, because I got ATW family members that are white. You're not going to be white. You are not. So when you realize that, then it's fine. But what you do is, it's native speakerism. Some of you don't want to follow teacher. Some of y'all don't want to follow anybody else. Oh my God, I got to speak like a native. Really? Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Just because somebody is from native, does that make them a good teacher?
Yes.
There's more than that. So wake up your minds, people. And again, it's coming from a native. But you might not follow me because I'm too direct. Or you might not like me because I'm African American. I don't care about that. What I care about is, when I've been on social media, what have I been trying to tell learners? Be proud of who you are. Motivation, inspiration through English. Stop comparing yourself and recognize your bias. Last point. Learners, when teachers said, like, oh my goodness, they only want teachers that are native. The only way that changes, learners, is when you demand it. The power is in your hands.
It's not
because power, brother, power concedes nothing. When people realize to look at native speakerism and this whole conversation between native, non-native, accent, whatever like that, sometimes what happens is that native speakerism is an economic system. Just think about it that way. Don't think about it as black, white, purple, Muslim, Jewish, straight. But don't think of native speakerism as an economic system. I want the money.
Yes.
Okay? So if I'm telling people that, you know what, you got to sound like a native, you got to sound this, you got to look this, I call power. But what's interesting is statistics, brother. There are more non-native individuals that speak English than speak English. The only reason that changes is when learners and people learning the language decide that they want to be accountable, that they want to take responsibility, that they want to make the language inclusive if they want to, and if they, the learners, the people watching, sit back and say, you know what? I don't care about whether somebody's native or non-native. What I care about is they're a qualified teacher that knows how to teach, and then I have a preference. Until that changes, brother, nothing will change. And that might have been too direct, but that is my truth.
You know what? It's like thinking that it's like thinking that everyone who comes from Brazil is good at playing football.
Right. I mean, does that mean, like, what's your native language, teacher? Is it Arabic or French?
Arabic, yes, it's Arabic.
Right. So does that mean if his native language is Arabic, does that mean that he's supposed to be, that he's able to teach Arabic? No. English is one of the only languages where it's like, you know what? I remember learning French. My desire was to speak French. I didn't want to speak French like a Tunisian. I didn't want to speak French like a Parisian. I just wanted to be able to communicate the language. But because of native speakerism and bigotry, that English remains one of the only languages where it's like, it's so funny. If you poll most people and you say, okay, most people, not all. If you poll most people and ask them the question, well, do you want everybody in the world to look like you, act like you, talk like you, think like you, eat like you, dance like you, pray like you? The majority of the people in the world would say no. There is a minority that says yes. So it's interesting. Most people in the world will say, hey, you know what? I don't want everybody to look like me. I value diversity. But interestingly enough, with respect to English, it's like we all want to sound native. One type of native, one color of native. And this is not, final point, this is not stuff that, okay, let me say it like this. For more information, go to my YouTube channel. This might be stuff that I'm saying that might be a little difficult for people to hear, or this might be information that people are aware of and they're not comfortable hearing, or maybe this is information that people have not thought of. That's fine. It's not right or wrong. But my job as a human being that happens to be a human being, that happens to be a teacher, my choice, my decision is to give learners the ability and the power to help themselves and focus on what is important.
Sure. Yes. So that is actually impressive, actually. You've got many ideas about this topic, and actually this is sometimes the problem with learning English is it's not really a technical problem. It's not with grammar or with stuff like that. It's bigger than that. It's motivation. It's these things that you have talked about.
It's mindset. It's confidence. It's motivation. It's those things.
Some people, they think that the problem is with grammar, is with this or with this, but in fact, it's not. The problem is bigger than that.
I think to your point, I think that certainly grammar and vocabulary are important. I mean, they're the foundations of the language. I think what becomes important is that how how it's taught. But one of the things that I do is that when I'm teaching my students face-to-face, or if I'm doing online tutoring, or even like, I have a 1-month tutoring coming up. It's called Millionaire Mindset for those individuals that are intermediate level that are interested in business. And one of the things that we talk about is the biggest barrier, to your point, is this, teacher. In my experience, the biggest barrier to accomplishing at least things in my life and with respect to English is mindset. Going in with the proper mindset. If I walk in to learning a language, think about its mindset. It's what I believe. Mindset is defined as perception, point of view. If I walk in trying to learn English with the incorrect mindset, with a mindset of doubt, with a mindset of fear, with a mindset of being native, with a mindset of that my accent is what's more important than my pronunciation. If I walk in with all of that negativity, then that mindset impedes how I'm going to learn the language. Why? Because what I think shows or manifests itself. So the first thing that I try to do with my learners is that let's talk about mindset. Let's get a person in a positive mind frame. Let's do affirmation. So mindset to me is key. That's why I named it, interestingly enough, my tutoring session for intermediate learners, Millionaire Mindset, because mindset is key.
Yeah. A question that I get just now in the questions box. Let me just show it here. This is a question. Can you see the question?
How can I? Yes. Hey, SA28. How can you improve your speaking skills? Great question. You might not like the answer. Speak when you can. On average, a minimum. This is a minimum. It's a great question. How can you improve your speaking skills? You want to try as a beginner, if you're a beginner, to speak at a minimum of 30 minutes a day. You can speak by yourself. You can speak with friends, but speak. Teachers done video on this. I've done videos on this, but actually to improve your speaking, you have to speak. You start with, for example, let me give you a quick exercise. What you can do is, let's say, for example, you're in your house and I'm in my bedroom right now. So you know what? One way that you can do is you start with words, then with words you start with phrases. So one way to speak is walk in your bedroom and say, oh, you know what? I see a bed. I have 2 pillows. So the only way to improve your speaking is just by speaking.
Yeah, that's good. This word phrases. When we start with word phrases, or what is the correct way to start? I mean, should we start with word vocabulary or phrases?
I would say, okay, so everything starts, in my opinion, with respect to vocabulary. Remember, vocabulary is define the word used when learning vocabulary. You learn vocabulary in context and situation. And then after that, what you do is that you use that word in a sentence. And then after that, you make a sentence to a phrase. That's what I would say. For more information, people can go to my YouTube channel, where I've done videos on vocabulary. But to your point, teacher, using it in words first and then phrases. So it's like building building a house, the foundation.
Yeah. Very good. Actually, very good question here. I got from one follower. Why do most, let's say, it's big percentage of students or of people who start learning English, they stop. Why do we stop?
Great question.
Is it the problem with the plan, with the goal? Where is the problem exactly?
I would say the number one, I could think of 2 reasons. Number one is lack of priority. It's not a priority.
Yeah.
It's not a priority. It's not a priority, because if something was a priority for me, that if it was my life on it or my loved ones, it's not a priority. And so because it's not a priority, it therefore impacts the goal and the plan and taking the necessary steps. So I would say it's not a priority, number one. And number two, which I think is minimum. Yeah. Number one, it's not a priority, and a subset of that, because it's not a priority, they're not willing to invest time, and they're not willing to invest resources, which is either money or books. So it's because it's not a priority, they're not consistent because they're not willing to devote the time or the resources or the money. So it's not a priority.
Yeah.
And the only person that can make that a priority is the learner.
Yeah. Another question here from one follower. He say, is watching English movies enough to enhance my English pronunciation?
That's a great question, Mohammed. So I think when you say enough, what I would say is it's think of English as like this, y'all. Mohammed, think of English like this. You're outside in a playground, and the playground represents English, and you have all of these different things that you can play on. You can play on the slide, you can play on the merry-go-round, things of that nature. So with respect to movies is one way to help your pronunciation. If you're going to use movies as a studying technique, what I recommend that you do is watch it first to understand the overall meaning, and then break that movie up in bits and pieces. Try to emulate the sound of the person that is speaking, imitate, shadow, copy, but make it your own. Other ways, Mohammed and others, if you go to my YouTube channel, I've done 3 videos on ways to improve your pronunciation. It might be of value to you, but it's one way, Mohammed, not the only way.
Yeah. Someone is asking, and actually it's one of my the fields that I'm interested in, teaching kids.
Sure.
Do kids learn in a different way? And one parent is asking, I have a child at home, and I speak English. I mean, I have I'm good at speaking English, but how can I work with my child? How can I work with my kid at home? How can I teach him English?
So I have not, okay, great. So I haven't had the chance to teach kids in a long time. When I was in Chicago and before I came to Saudi and got my TESOL certification, I taught kids. Public service announcement. Anybody that teaches kids, I have the utmost respect for you, because that takes a heck of a lot more patience than I have, but maybe one day I will aspire to doing that. One of the things that, as it relates to kids, is that I think that it's a couple things. A lot of repetition, make it fun. A lot of repetition, make it fun. For example, if I'm a guardian or parent, what I could do is I could be around the dinner table using English, number one. Number two, there are different applications out there specifically for kids that are safe, that can be utilized, that you can monitor, that you can have it on their phone or their PDF, number two. Number three is that what you can do is that you can tie the English into to the child's interest. So, for example, there are tons of cartoons. I think they're still cartoons. I'm old. Yeah. Well, not the cartoons I remember, but they're English cartoons, right? They're English cartoons. So I think at the end of the day, yes. Last point, when you say do kids learn differently, what I would say is this. I think you know, the interesting thing about kids is that kids, if they're really engaged in the language, they're not afraid of making mistakes, and so they'll have fun with the language more than adults. But again, I think what is difficult about kids is keeping their attention. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Well, let me recapitulate. You talked about repetition, a lot of repetition, and make it fun. I mean, make all the learning fun. Tie the English to the kids' interest, which is pretty interesting. Okay.
And games, English game, right? What application? And like, there's an application, Educa's World, for example. You know, that's an application there that is for children from the ages of 2 to 10. But you know, English games. I mean, it's interesting. Like when I was a kid, which was years ago, and yes, Lily, or you're never too old to learn English. But you know, before COVID, right? You know, or even because of the generation, I remember when I was learning French, we used to go outside and play. I don't know if kids still do that. Like I tell my kid back home, but you know, go outside and play in English. So if you can't go outside because you don't do it or because of COVID, then you know what? Play an English game. Like we used to play Ring Around the Rosie or hide and seek. I'm showing my age, but you know, a lot of English games, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's great. So English games and songs as well. Songs.
Yeah, rhythm. Songs are are one of the best. When I learned French, I was like, songs are great. Because again, like it's funny when you learn. Songs is a great way because why? It helps you with your pronunciation. Number one, and number two, notice it's very interesting when someone is singing, they're not worrying about their accent. They're worrying about their pronunciation and the nuance. So get kids to sing songs. You know, tell them to make a song about Teacher Will. There's this crazy teacher named Teacher Will. He's crazy, but he's funny. Whatever it is, you know what I mean? So yeah, English songs are great.
Yeah, it's great. So games, repetition, make the learning fun, and tie it to the kids' interest. Well, another question here. We have here a question. Let's just pin this question. This question: how can I improve my grammar? Is grammar an issue?
Great.
Is it
okay?
Is it not hard? Grammar as the monster of learning any language.
Grammar, okay, very quickly. I don't mean to sound like a robot. I've done a video on grammar. Please go to my YouTube channel. Also, I did a video on my Instagram page. You can do that. Here are my thoughts on grammar. Grammar is the foundation, the glue of English. Grammar, it's not that grammar is not important. It is. I think what is more important is how a learner learns grammar. My approach to grammar, my thoughts on grammar, my experience on grammar as both a certified TESOL instructor and also as someone who also knows to speak another language than English, is that you learn grammar in context and situation. You learn grammar by being part of being fluent. And typically what happens is that what people do is that they learn the grammar rules. I have a thing. For example, teacher and I are using grammar right now. What are you doing? What are you eating? Are you okay? What are you doing? Oh, doing, that's now. So what becomes important is that you improve your grammar. When you improve your proficiency, you improve your fluency. You learn grammar naturally. For example, if I say to you, what will you do tomorrow? What will you do tomorrow, learners? Where will you go? What will you do? Oh, what will you do? Will. Well, when is that? Is that now, past, or future? What will you do? Oh, will, that's future. I will go to work. I will go to the gym. So you learn the grammar, at least this is my approach and how I teach it. Like if I'm teaching that, I'm like, okay, great. What will you do? Will. Oh, you will go to lunch? Oh, will. Is that now, past, or present? Or I'm sorry, is that now, future, or past? Future. Yes. Well, great. There's something that we have in the verb tense called the future simple. So you learn grammar naturally, intuitively, as part of fluency. Because what happens is, last point, I have a thing called with grammar, 1 + 1 = total English. The first one represents the target language, whatever the grammar is. The other one represents how to explain it. And then that's the total English. So what a lot of learners do is that they'll know like future, like I did this in my class. I'm like, okay, I was like, I have studied English, for example. In my class, I was like, I have studied English recently. And one of my students was like, present perfect. I was like, great, that's the one. I was like, what is it? They're like, present perfect. I'm like, no. What is it? Right? Explain it to me. So whatever grammar is, and even vocabulary, if I want learners to think about 1 + 1 = total English. Whatever you're learning in English, vocabulary, grammar, modal verbs, phrasal verbs, collocations, that's your target language. The other one is very important, the ability to explain it. And most of the time with grammar, what happens is people just know the one, they just know the rule, but they don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, so this is like the example you gave. I have brushed my teeth, for example. They should have said like recent action. Okay, this is a recent action, how we talk about a recent action. So they should be able to explain and to know it's like the logic behind these rules. Sometimes if you know the logic behind certain tense, for example, the present perfect, why do we have the present perfect in English? Well, to express this type of action and this type and this type. So this will help.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And teacher, what I would add on to you is this. See, what I do is I flip it, right? I love what you said. I flip it. So what I'll say is like, hey, you know what? What have I eaten lately? I've eaten I've eaten sushi lately. So I've eaten sushi lately. I'm like, okay, I've eaten lately. So right, because we're teachers, we have pictures, we have a board. So I'll be like, hey, you know what? I've eaten lately. What does that mean? Well, does it mean I've done something in the past? Do I do it in the future? Or is it connected to now, right? So I use it in context first, and then I explain. With respect to verb tenses, because it's a good point, I give people 2 resources. If you're interested in verb tenses, what you can do is there's a wonderful there's a wonderful internet site called EnglishPage.com. It will give you every verb tense in the English language. So when I'm teaching verb tenses, I teach that's Arabic. I teach how, when, why. The how is the verb structure, the when is the time of the verb, and the why. So EnglishPage.com is a great resource. And then if people are interested, if they scroll up on my Instagram page, and go to March of 2017, I did every verb tense in the English language using the example. In addition, if they go to my YouTube channel, ask_teacher Will, I've done an everyday action, right now action, future action, action that a past action that started in the past, connected to now, and a continuous action in the past started up until now. We're basically saying, what am I saying? I listen, I listen, I'm listening, I will listen, I listened, I have listened, and I have been listening. Notice I gave context, learners, before I said present simple, present continuous, future simple, past simple, present perfect, and present perfect continuous. So those are the resources that I would recommend.
Shouldn't they get confused with these names? Present perfect, continuous, past
right,
simple.
Exactly. That's why. Right. That's why we teach. I like to teach it in context first, and situation first.
And then say the name.
And then give the name. At least because most of my students, teacher, they don't know how to explain it, and then they get mad at me. It's like the same thing, like this, like. If you ask most students this, I'll be like, what's inside this? What's inside this bottle? And they'll be like, water. And I'm like, what's water? And they'll be like, water. And I'm like, you didn't tell me what it is. You didn't give me an example of it.
Yeah.
So if anything the learners get, I just like to say 1 + 1 = total English. The 1 is whatever you're learning in English. That's your target English.
Yeah.
And then the other 1 is how to explain it. If you can explain it, that means you know it. And then you can use it in sentence, phrases, write it, things of that nature.
Yeah, that's good. One major problem I noticed, or a question that I have lately received, translation. Sometimes when we want to speak as beginners, we don't have that background in our head, in our mind. So we just go and borrow from our native language and we put into English, and this causes a very big problem. Grammar, many things are like corrupted, so we don't get this. So what is the problem here? How can we solve this problem? How can we stop translating in our heads?
It's a very interesting question, teacher. So since I'm your guest, I'll say it like this. What I would, again, I did a video on my YouTube channel, so let me say it like this. Translation, particularly from a beginner learner, is that is ultimately a decision that people have to decide to do. My approach, my thoughts of this is both as someone who's learned a native language. I'll use my experience. When I was learning French, I was not allowed to translate in class, and I was a beginner. I was not allowed to translate in class.
Yeah.
And when my teacher had questions, she would explain it to me by additional sentences or words or pictures, phrases, or body language. So what my approach is someone who also knows to speak another language. And what's interesting about that is that when you're learning a second language, regardless if it's English or French or Farsi, Arabic, whatever it is, there's a certain methodology or process or system that takes the place. I am under the aspect whereas is that I do not believe in translation. I believe being 100% immersed in the language. And I have taught beginners that had no understanding of language. How have I taught them? Through body language, through pictures, through social media. I believe in 100% English. Now, if you're a beginner and you're having difficulty, what I first recommend that you do is that you try to get the overall words in English. And then if you're not able to, if you're in an English class or you're in an English setting, try to have the class in English. If you don't get it, then I recommend that outside, invest in a very good bilingual dictionary, and then translate, right? From your native language into English. But while in class, I'm not a supportive, in class and videos that I do, I am not in support of translating, translating from one's native language into English, even for beginners. Because for me, based on my own experience, and then in addition to that, based on the fact that, and when I went and got my certified qualified training as a TESOL instructor, the reason I don't do that is because, particularly at beginners, and I love teaching beginners, is because if you start translating at an early age when you're learning English, research and studies show that as you get higher up in proficiency, that what happens is that you will it prevents you thinking in English. And again, last point, that's a personal choice because ultimately, 2 quick points. Number one, particularly for beginners, right? And not only for beginners, but for anybody learning the language, there is a percent of society out there that likes your videos to be in your native language. And then Arabic or French, people like videos like, there are videos that I've watched, and again, it's their decision. Like you're trying to learn English on social media, or you're trying to learn English in your English class, and when you go to your English class, or you're looking at videos, they give you 60-70% of the video in your native language. Okay, I understand some of you learners like that. That's just not my approach. How are you supposed to learn English if you're still thinking in your native language? But again, that is something that the learners like, okay, and that's a personal decision. But at the end of the day, final point, If you're a beginner, then you know what? Try to think in English. Then if you're not, be able to invest in a dictionary, do your translation out of class. And if you decide and you choose to follow Teacher Will, please do not ask me, can you give me video, can you do subtitles in a language that's other than English? I'm not doing that. So if you are somebody that is a native Farsi speaker, Arabic speaker, French speaker, Spanish speaker, and if you want me to do subtitles in your native language, it's not going to happen. That's not my approach. And there are other teachers out there that do that. I'm not doing it because for me, that is not my preferred way, nor is that the effective way that somebody learns the language. It's like if I went, here's why I say that. And again, it's choice because people can follow whoever they want to. But if I wanted to learn Arabic from teacher and he's a qualified Arabic teacher, if I'm going to learn Arabic from him, why would I invest my money or why would I watch content material where I want to learn Arabic and he's giving me videos in 80-90% in English and then give me Arabic? Or what he'll do is he'll like give me a phrase in Arabic and then translate it in English. And again, I need to say this because people have a choice and a decision to do content and teach however they are. So I respect that and that because I don't want to offend any content providers out there at all. It is their choice. I'm just telling you what my method is.
Yeah, because most learners, it is preferred by learners, but I think in my own point of view that using Arabic and teaching English, it's gonna slow the learning process. If you're going to learn in 1 year, it will take you like 3 or 4 years. So it's
that's what the research shows. But again, right. I mean, teacher, that's what the research shows. But I wanted to be very clear because this live is going to be saved. And I don't want fellow colleagues, I just need to say this in terms of integrity. Because what will happen is, or what has happened to me is that people have said, oh, Teacher Will is criticizing me. No, I'm not criticizing you. What I'm telling you is that you as a content provider and you as a learner have a decision and choice. You can follow whomever you want. That is the beautiful thing about social media. You can follow whoever you want and you can listen to whatever. But research and statistics shows that at the end of the day, translation method is one method, right? But it might not be the most effective way. And so even for beginners, so I want teachers and learners to be very clear. You can do your content however you want to do it, that's your choice. But I'm not going to do that. And when learners ask me that question, I explain why. Because the beautiful thing is we have choice. So you find and you choose content providers that what you want to do. But in my class and my videos, it's 100% immersion in English. And what I will do, which I learned thanks to the ATW family, is that I will do English subtitles. Because for a very long time, I didn't do English subtitles, but the ATW family was like, Teacher Will, you're crazy. So, but that's just not my approach. So learners make that decision.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. One last question, Teacher Will. It was very interesting actually talking to you. You know, with this situation of the pandemic nowadays, teachers, they're facing a very challenging times. And I would like you to give a word to all the teachers around the world, especially teachers of English. What would you like to say to the teachers about this, about the pandemic, about changing the way of teaching from face-to-face to online teaching and all those stuffs?
Wow. Well, I'm certainly not a subject matter expert on that, but I think my suggestion, what I learned is the following, is that a couple of things. Number one, teaching, anybody's out there that's a teacher, anybody out there that is a teacher, congratulations. Well done, well rewarded. What I would say is that we certainly, or I certainly hope that the pandemic and COVID will be eradicated and that we will find a vaccination. But I would encourage teachers that, at least for me, I'll speak for myself. It's been a very interesting time period. But for me, I viewed it as, even though there's always challenges, I viewed it as an opportunity for me to get more proficient with respect to teaching online, familiarize myself with the latest technology out there, different applications that I want to use as it relates to teaching online. I would encourage people, I tried to encourage myself and motivate myself to do professional development, to look at my particular biases, look at my approach with respect to teaching, be open to getting outside of the box. And so at the end of the day, you know, as it relates to online, I do think that, you know, when there is a vaccination form, online and the presence of online is here to stay. So if people want to do it for social media purposes or as a way to make supplemental income and do businesses, then it's here to stay. And at the end of the day, thank you very much for teachers, all teachers out there. Thank you very much for your work. Thank you for the sacrifice that you made. And last point that I would say is that at least worked for me is that particularly on social media, what I've learned is compare yourself to yourself. It's not just about the number. And I know that's kind of hypocritical or a thing, but on social media, what I've learned is you have your vision, your plan, and don't worry about the numbers per se, because the numbers will come. Don't compare yourself to anybody else, because you out there are doing a wonderful job, and what you have, somebody needs to hear it. Be true to yourself.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Teacher Will. It's been 1 hour and 15 speaking to you, and the time.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, teacher, let me say this very quickly. I did not realize that, but let me say this. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I really do appreciate it. And I believe in like we learn together. And so when you reached out, I appreciate it. Maybe we'll do future lives in the future. If so, reach out to me. And I hope the learners learn both of the people listening learn something from this. And the thoughts that I've expressed are solely my own. But I would encourage learners, again, to be proud of who you are and think about why you're learning English. What's your goal? What's your plan? What's your goal? What's your plan? Pray and produce. And at the end of the day, you, the learner, needs to be proud of yourself. You're learning a language, and you, the learner out there, has the ability to change. Focus on what's important, and other things that you think that are not, you have the ability to make the industry what you want it to be. So thank you, teacher, and I hope we'll do this again. I really appreciate it. Just do me a favor, brother, do me a favor. When the live is over, just tag me on the story. What I'll do is I'll share it to my family. And Mr. Muhammad, my YouTube channel is the same as my Instagram. So it's @_Teacher Will. It's the same as my YouTube. So thank you very much, teacher. I appreciate the time.
You're welcome. And one more thing, go and follow Teacher Will. And in the description link, you can find the link to his YouTube channel. Go follow him. Check his content out. Thank you so much, Teacher Will. It's been nice talking to you. See you in another chance.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much, guys. That was it for today's live. It was a very wonderful live with Teacher Will from the United States. We've spent 1 hour and 15. We didn't feel the time passing. Well, thank you so much. I'll be sharing, or I'll be saving this live on my page. You can go and check it out, whatever you want. Yeah, and that's it. And don't forget to keep learning, and be alerted for other lives that will come on my page. Thank you so much.